Talk to me nice, talk to me honestly. Look in my eyes, don't let it fall on me.
Up next, we have the Motherhood panel. And this is a really sensitive and vulnerable conversation we're going to have because we tend to always think about the women who have birthed natural children, and we want to have that conversation. But what I love about what we're about to do is we're going to have that conversation with women who have sales careers who maybe choose not to be a mother, or women who are in these careers and maybe they're struggling with getting pregnant and they have some fertility issues. But either way, we want to make sure that all of these women, just like you, have a safe space to grow and have this conversation, because some of us become moms by choice, some of us want to become moms and we're having a little bit of difficulty and challenge, and some of us are choosing not to be moms, and guess what, that is okay. And that's why I love Sistas in Sales, because whatever type of mom or non-mom or career woman you want to be, we're going to be able to have that conversation. And I'm excited to have it because you're going to get perspectives from people who literally became a mom and didn't miss a beat in their sales career. Then you're going to hear from a woman who's been struggling to get pregnant. And then you're even going to hear from a woman who by choice decided to be a single mom. So if either one or those options sound interesting to you, you definitely want to pay attention to this motherhood panel, because we're going to really have a raw and real conversation on all aspects of motherhood that I know for a fact that many other conferences are not having. So with that being said, we have a wonderful group of women who are going to share the realness and the rawness with their journey to, or maybe not as traditional, on choosing to become a mother or choosing not to become a mother, or just even their frustration or challenges. So up first, we have Simone Tate. She is founder of Poppy Seed Health. We also have Miss Denise Lawson Forbes. She is a healthcare account executive at Workday, as well as Yaslin Daniels. She is the global head of sales solutions at Pinterest, and moderating this wonderful panel is Monique Russell, CEO of Clear Communications. Let's have this conversation.
Talk to me nice, talk to me honestly. Look in my
Well,
eyes.
hello, everyone, and welcome to the final panel in the Sisters in Sales conference. Listen, you have been so inspired for the last 2 days, but we have saved the best for last. Literally, we have saved the best for last. This is a conversation that you will not find anywhere. This motherhood panel will allow you to feel inspired. It will allow you to feel empowered, but most of all, you feel connected. Today, I have the pleasure of facilitating this conversation with three amazing, powerful women leaders. Ladies, welcome to the show. I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to you to introduce yourself. We'll start with Simone, we'll go with Denise, and then we'll bring it back to Yaslin.
Hi, everyone. I'm Simone Tate. I'm the founder and CEO of Poppy Seed Health. And I am so excited to be here with you. Poppy Seed Health is a 24/7 on-demand text app connecting pregnant and postpartum people and people who have experienced loss. And we connect them with doulas, midwives, and nurses on demand in less than 30 seconds, all via text. Focusing mainly on emotional and mental health support, which is a part of my own lived experience as I've gone down a very complicated road to motherhood and to parenthood, which I'm still working on. And I will share so much more about that, I'm sure, as we discuss today.
Thank you so much, Simone. Denise?
Hi, everyone. My name is Denise Lawson Forbes. I'm actually an account executive at Workday, and been in corporate America, I think, my entire lifetime, and worked many different facets. Worked such a long time and kind of forgot. My husband and I kind of forgot that, maybe we'd like to continue our lineage, and wound up having children a little bit later in life. I am the mother of 3 kids, a college student and 2 high schoolers that really keep me busy. I'm also the mother of a special needs son who has been recently diagnosed with leukemia. So, from a work perspective, I enjoy working. I think having a good work life and balance and having an outlet, work has turned into, I think, my outlet. And that's been a pretty good thing. And some of the discipline and things that I've had to step up and do have come into play. So, from a work perspective. So, with that, thank you.
Thank you, Denise. And Yaslin.
Yes, hello. I'm Yoslyn Daniels. I'm the global head of sales solutions at Pinterest, the inspiration to action platform. I am a mother of a 15-year-old, a single parent of a 15-year-old boy. And I'm really excited to be here. I do not often get a chance to talk about work-life balance and family, and so this is an amazing opportunity for me to get to talk about my experiences and kind of and gush about my son. So thank you for the opportunity to share, and I look forward to the discussion.
All right, listen, I told you guys this is going to be fire. You better get to hold on to the edge of your seat. Ladies, I want to start with this question. What is the worst piece of advice you have ever heard or received around motherhood? Yaslin, I'll start with you.
That it comes easy, and once you have it, like you just know what to do. That's the worst piece of advice that I got. Like, oh, you'll just figure it out. It's really just not like that. I think you know, parents can attest to the fact that not only is every child different, but your notions of parenting, maybe for how you were raised, I actually goes completely out the window when you have your own child, because you have to raise them and parent them based on their personality. And I mean, I have had that's something I've had to learn. Um, you know, discipline, for me when I was growing up is very different than discipline the way it is these days with young kids. And so I've had to, really balance the things that I thought my parents did were right with what I now have to do as a single parent to my 15-year-old. So that was definitely the worst piece of advice that I got.
You can say that again, because it's not easy. It is no walk in the park, that's for sure. Denise, what about you? What's the worst piece of advice?
Oh my goodness.
You have so many, huh?
I could probably tell you stories about it. But coming from so I'm of West Indian background, and the worst piece of advice is that I couldn't do it being working, right? I couldn't do it. My children, my first two are not far in age, but my two boys are 18 months. And from a mothering standpoint, it's like, you can't do this. They told me that I couldn't do it because I wanted to maintain and work. So from a motherhood perspective, I have learned, and we can give enough time. There is enough of me and my time to give to my children. So from that perspective, I believe that any woman, and I try and teach this to my children, there's nothing that we can't do. It may not be easy, but there's nothing that we cannot do.
Excellent. I'm also having a West Indian background, so I totally understand what you mean when you heard it can't be done. It seems to be something that's a common thread, not just in the islands, but even globally, where people tend to impose their views on others. Simone, what about you? What's the worst advice you have heard or received about motherhood?
So the worst advice, which I get it, why people say it all the time, it'll happen naturally.
Mm.
Um, and it is not so easy to get pregnant for a lot of people. 1 in 8 people have some sort of fertility or infertility issue in their reproductive years. And I'm one of those people. So it will happen naturally is the thing that a lot of people say to comfort and encourage. But it isn't happening naturally, and it hasn't happened naturally. And some of us need some help. And even that help sometimes doesn't doesn't actually work, right? So it is the worst piece of advice that people, I don't think, realize they're giving, because you never know what someone is going through or where they are in their journey.
That's awesome. Because the thing is, when you said people do that because sometimes they want to comfort you, they don't know what to say, they don't know how to comfort you. And so they give these statements that actually don't really help. They do more harm than good. Simone, I heard that you have a way of navigating conversations out of this world. Like you are the conversation navigator. So I want to pose this question to you, just coming off the back of what we just talked about. How would you advise, or how would you navigate the conversation, I don't want to have kids?
Yeah, I first of all, I think it's really important for people to understand that is actually no one's business, right? If you choose not to have children and not to have kids, and you don't want to share that information, you don't have to. But a couple of pointers that I typically give my own girlfriends and people in my life is that tell the people that you can trust, that will support you anyway, that will understand that perhaps you're one of those people who you don't want to have your own children, but that doesn't mean don't invite me to your kids' birthday parties. Don't leave me out when someone else gets pregnant in our friend group or in the family. I am happy for anyone. It doesn't mean necessarily that you don't want to be around children. The second thing is that be really firm, in explaining, not explaining why you don't want to have children, if that is your choice, but be really firm in saying, I don't want kids, and I'm okay with that. Not leaving room for anyone else to object to it. They may have questions, but then again, it's totally up to you whether or not you want to respond to them. And then the other thing, I may have my own company now, but I spent my entire career in tech sales, right? And for every woman identifying person, there comes a time where people look at you and they think, oh, she just got married, she's going to have a kid, or she's not married and she's this age, this is going to happen. And there's a lot of assumptions that are happening about when you're having children. Just know that in the workplace specifically, it is especially none of their business. But if you choose to share, just know that you are protected in all sorts of ways, by discrimination laws and all sorts of other things in terms of HR and having those conversations. If for some reason you think that you are being left out of opportunities or not being given opportunities because of where you are in your life stages as it relates to children and not having children.
Simone, I really see why Poppy Seed Health is your baby. I really see why you have taken this platform to provide so much inclusivity and so much support and welcoming love for women or people who are going through pregnancy and postpartum support. Because as I listen to you, I hear more of, look, I can be excluded if I choose to have a child. I can be excluded if I choose not to have a child. I can be excluded if I get married and kids don't happen right away. But at the end of the day, what I'm hearing you say is, guess what? Don't leave me out. If you think that just because I don't have a kid, I won't want to come, keep me included. And that's exactly what your company does. And that's what it provides for people who are going through pregnancy and postpartum experiences. And Denise, I know you talked about your family looking like, okay, what y'all gonna do? Like, where the kids coming? Where the kids coming? So, from a corporate healthcare executive, in your experience, how did you handle those situations, or did any of those come up at work for you?
Yeah, I think it more came up for me in terms of when I eventually started to have kids. And the question, so not only I was one of the only female, but one of the only female people of color. So when it came up in terms of having children, it's just like, well, what's going to be next, right? Will she step back and not have such a what I would consider a job that warrants a lot of my time or demanded a lot of my time? And, how would that be handled? So I think, from that perspective, part of me is like, well, I'm going to show you how it's done. That's one of it. But number two, it can be done. I think at the end of the day, that women, especially women of color, I just think we are the pinnacle in society. And what I mean by that is that I think there's nothing that gets thrown our way that we can't handle. It might not be easy, but we do and are able to do it. So from a corporate standpoint, I just wanted to make sure that I showed everyone exactly that it could be done. And yes, it would be hard, but guess what? I'm up for the challenge and I was able to do it. So,
Oh my God, that is fantastic. I am taken away that look, people see this as a limitation one way or the other. They think that you are handicapped one way or the other. And Denise Lawson Forbes is here to tell us it's not a handicap, it's not a limitation. If it's something that you desire and you want, it can be done. Yaslin, I know that you are
Yes.
all things marketing, marketing genius, marketing strategist, marketing instructor. And I want to throw this like a fun question here.
Yeah.
If we were thinking, we're talking about sales right now, and you are the head of global sales. And if we were to think about motherhood as a sales project, really, if we were thinking about motherhood as a sales project, but before we even get to sales, we need marketing so that we can shift these antiquated perspectives. What would be your guidance based on your experience professionally and personally? What would be your guidance for women who are listening to begin to embrace this from a marketing perspective for themselves and for their business lives?
If I can ask a clarifying question, um, usually when you're doing a marketing campaign, you're selling them or trying to get them to do some kind of action or do something. I think, you know, and I guess I'll just roll this into the comment, but that's usually how it works in marketing, right? It's about the action, the call to action. What are you trying to get them to do? Um, I think in trying to balance like work and family, the typical notions of marketing kind of goes out the window because a lot of times your consumer, which is your child, um, they're not buying what you're trying to sell. And a lot of times they see through the gimmicks, they see through the marketing tactics and the campaign, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to do the opposite of what you said. So I guess what I would say, in time in terms of just like parenting and kind of balancing all of that is choose your battles. Like literally, it is a day by day thing. Um, you can change your mind on a dime. Kids are very resilient. If you're wrong, say you're wrong. They love that. I say I'm wrong a lot, and my son is like, oh, you mean I'm right? I'm like, yeah, you kind of are. They love that. It builds trust and it builds the relationship. So I'd say, you can't fool your kids. Like it just is what it is. So I can't think of any great marketing slogan or campaign really to say because it's just transparent.
Yes, be transparent. So I guess that's even hitting into what's different and what's similar about, being a mom in sales versus a mom in any other industry. Like where do you find the similarities? Where do you find the gaps? You may not have always been in sales. Some of you have transitioned in other areas. So when we talk about this, what do you think is similar or different with other industries? And any one of you can answer that question. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
So, I think so. If I'm understanding your question, so from a sales perspective in a motherhood, I'd agree with Yaslin in that raising kids is quite interesting. And there are, when you have multiple, they're so different. But, I think the goal of any parent is you want to make sure that your kid, it's not about just being successful in life. It's about them being a good human being and about them having the ability to have proper coping skills so that whatever is put in front of them, that they're able to handle it. I also firmly believe that, yeah, everyone wants their kid to just do the greatest. They want them to be the next Bill Gates or whomever, it happens to be. That's not realistic, right? In this day and age, I think we've learned that times have changed, right? And I think what we knew 2 years ago is probably not going to be the same now moving forward. So, how do you equip them with what's necessary? And coping skills, I think, is fundamental. I think my dad always told me, you got some good coping skills, you can manage any and everything. So it's how do you translate that, and how do you work with children to do that? Because nowadays, from a children's perspective, when I read any books, I try and tune a lot of that out, just so you know, some of the book reading and all the stuff coming about us on how start your kid ABC or whatever it's called. I don't know, remember, but all of those things that they want you to throw at your kid, Kumon, all of those things. At the end of the day, it's sort of a little bit back to basics and coping skills and how to respect people and how people can respect you, right? So similar things from a sales perspective, I have to be a trusted advisor. You don't want to buy anything I have if you don't trust me in selling you. If not, I'm always selling, bells and whistles, but a trusted advisor. Same thing in parenthood. Trust me, my darling daughter. I know you know more, you think you know more than me, but here are the things that we need to do. And it's always back to basics and coping skills. Because at some point as a parent, you have to let them go out. I can't go to school with them. I can't sit on their online classes. I can't do everything with them. So if I teach them some of those fundamentals, then they'll be able to manage life in general and then go off. And then I get a little bit of calm on the inside instead of trying to worry, oh my gosh, did they have everything? No, they've got it covered. So I think managing that and coping skills are really cool, are really what they would need to move forward.
Awesome. Simone, do you want to add to that?
Well, one sign of a really good salesperson is listening. And listening is a big deal when it comes to building trust in any relationship as it relates to our own sales relationships or partnerships. Doesn't matter what you're doing, transactional sales, enterprise sales, B2B sales. A good salesperson is listening. And at the core of listening, you're not listening and then solving at the same time. You're listening so that you can solve. And so many times in parenting, that's exactly what's happening. Although I will say, especially on Poppy, we're available 24/7 for people to text us. We get a whole lot of moms texting us that they feel really guilty because they're just not listening. They don't have the time or even the patience. We are human. And especially this past year and a half, we've all been under an incredible amount of pressure and some of us stress and whatever that actually looks like for you. But listening, I think, is one of the things that as a parent or someone who is thinking about how to really transfer some of your best sales skills into maybe your parenting skills, listening is one of them. And I just want to encourage all of us to start that early, from the time your baby is babbling, right? Like there is an entire thing around signals and what babies are actually doing as soon as they're earthside with us. So don't ever stop thinking about just listening. That's okay too. It really helps to build trust.
Mm-hmm.
I'd also add, just kind of to round out the comments, similarly with parenting and in sales, you got to trust your gut, trust your instincts, because 9 times out of 10, you know exactly what you need to do. And you're going to get a lot of advice a lot of best practices. I love how Denise mentioned all the books and things that are going to get thrown at you. But at the end of the day, you really know your child or children. You know them and you know what's best. So trust your gut and go with that.
Oh, fantastic. So the skills we have to focus on are listening, coping, having that inner peace and intuition, not just for our kids, but also for ourselves. And when I think about this whole time period that we're in with the whole stress and the collective trauma, I really want to throw this question out to each of you because a lot of times people will say, it cannot be done. Like Denise said, no, you're not going to be able to do it. It's not going to work. It's going to be easy. And if we are honest with ourselves, we know that the last year and a half has not been easy. So my question to you is, how have you thrived during this pandemic? How have you thrived as a mom and as a woman in sales during this pandemic?
So from my perspective, I spent a lot of years on the road, right? I think my first, my daughter, I had almost 100,000 miles in womb, right, of travel before she came out. So that's a lot. During the pandemic, we really felt that what would really happen with business, right? Not only entities, and I only cover the healthcare sector. So a big high impact sector for what happened in COVID. So how do we translate all of the relationships that really you learn little nuggets during the sales process face to face? You had insight. It was so easy to walk around, meet people, and learn. And all of that pretty much got taken away. We were not allowed to go back into the organizations. What I learned is that how to build relationships via just what we're doing today, right? Via a Zoom or via, StreamYard, anything like that. Those are the things. This whole concept of, well, here's how I'm going to sell now and not be an infomercial. How do I become a trusted advisor in this mechanism? And how do you even negotiate and go through things? I mean, demos are one thing and that's fine, but there are a lot of things within the sales cycle that here's how we're going to meet nowadays. So I think that's something that I learned, that number one, it can be done. And by the way, I'm learning just as much as my prospects, right? As my customers are learning, they're learning the same way. And the other thing is, the part of the reason I think it has worked is that we've gotten to know each other because some of them were home too, right? So there's more, it's a little bit more intimate. So I think that this mode of communication and this way of selling is here to stay. And I think it's only going to continue. Not saying that you won't be able to do it face to face, but again, being a Black female, right now I'm the only Black female on my entire sales organization, which, hopefully that we're going to be changing some of that. But the bottom line is that I find that most of my counterparts they're like, well, we've got to go back face to face. We're going back face to face. I'm like, healthcare doesn't want you back. It's not letting you back in. So I really don't know what we're going to do. And I'm actually gung ho and excited for this change because I think it can be done and be done very well. I have not missed a beat. So I will share that.
Wow.
And a lot of my colleagues have.
Thriving on the sales side, on the sales side, staying in a state of continuous learning new ways to connect, learning new ways to have a sales conversation, learning new ways of negotiation. These are the things that I'm hearing popping out from your thriving moments during the pandemic. Yaslin, would you care to share how have you thrived, either as a mom or as a professional?
Yeah, that's a really hard question, and I'll be, really honest. The past 2 years with COVID has been really tough, especially I think for the kids in school, in particular, like the older ones, with the isolation. And I think two things that I think, we've done, and that is 100% applicable to sellers sort of in this environment. I think one is ask for help. It is okay to say, you know what, I'm having trouble here. I don't know how to do this. Use your network, call your family members, use your friends, pull people in to help you, and don't think that you're alone and that no one's going through what you're going through. Like everybody's going through what you're going through, really. And so use your network and ask for help. And don't be shy to leverage things like Lyra or Bravely for career coaching or for therapy. I think that's those are the ways that I've thrived, is by asking for help and using those resources available to me.
Thank you so much, Yaslin. Great tips and great tools for us to package it all together. So, Simone, what about you?
Well, unabashedly, I built a company. Um, During this pandemic, I built a telehealth company that is venture backed, that I'm very proud of. I raised our first round of capital in the middle of COVID. And it just so happened that before the pandemic was on anyone's mind, I was already building Poppy Seed Health in beta and in ways that I would have never known that a pandemic would put and center what families need during the most unprecedented times in terms of mental health and emotional health and well-being support, and having access to doulas, midwives, and nurses, and even more so specifically doulas who were with birthing people virtually when everyone was kicked out of the offices, hospitals, as they were giving birth by themselves. Yaslin was talking about this, and I can, totally resonate with it, which is when parents left offices and left their workplace. And by the way, let's not forget that over 800,000 women left the workplace because they are essential to their families, and because their companies weren't giving them the flexibility that they needed, and childcare and infrastructure fell apart, right? So the way that I thrived was I built a solution for it. And I am really proud of that. And we are still building. We are just at the beginning, but it is more relevant than ever. And frankly, I think being at the forefront of telehealth and really centering families and birthing people and parents with the work that we're doing will go far beyond the pandemic, right? And as long as we are here, we will most likely consider working for other people, working in an office, working, on teams, and thriving during the pandemic for me meant putting literally everything I had into building Poppy Seed Health for many of you, for wherever you are in your journey. So that's what I've been doing.
Yes. I mean, the thing about this is that it's so beautiful. Each one of you have your way of thriving. And what I want our audience, each one of you that are listening to this right now, what I want you to take away from it is that everyone has a different story. Everyone has a different approach. Everyone has a different setup. So it doesn't need to be a one size fits all. You don't have to have 10 checklists. You don't have to have, everything perfect, ducks in a row in order to thrive. Will it be easy? Like Yaslin said, no. But when it becomes difficult, what are the tools that we use to thrive? Simone built a whole business in the pandemic. That's how she thrived. Denise stayed in a state of continuous learning and development. That was an approach that she used for herself. And Yaslin utilized all the resources available, asking for help, coaching, therapy, pulling on friends and resources. And no one way or approach is the right way. It's the right way for you. Ladies, I want to tell you thank you, because your stories and your individual experiences is what gives other women the permission to share their experiences as well. So I want to get down into a little bit of, your day to day. They say the morning is the most important part of the day. You have to set your intention for those women and people who are raising little ones, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds. I mean, it's 7 o'clock and you've already put in 3 hours. And that's before you have to start your workday. Or if you have a special needs child, you may start early in a similar fashion. So I want to know from each one of you, how do you start your day? What's your routine or your intention setting practice to keep your day focused or even throughout the day as well?
Well, let's talk about where I'm coming from, which was chaos. So my mornings used to just be chaos. And I'm talking about those days where I had a quota to meet. I was getting on a plane similar to Denise all the time. I was managing teams. I was managing distributed teams before that was popular. And I was not getting good quality sleep. I think everyone is going to hear this from all of us. We're at a certain stage in our lives, obviously, where we know investing in sleep is really important, but good quality sleep. I love that you said that, Denise. So I was coming from chaos. I was always, most of the time, and I'm not proud of this, late to meetings. I was always trying to organize the night before, but never really got organized the morning, when I woke up. A million different things coming at me. I am now founder and CEO of my company, and I cannot have chaos like that. That's not where I thrive, and it's certainly not where my team thrives and the people who are, building Poppy every day. But we are scaling, and it needs to happen quickly and smartly and resourcefully, right? And so what my day looks like is always starting with very early in the morning. I will also say this. I read a book that completely changed my life a few years ago. It's called Atomic Habits. And habits are really important. It takes about 32 days to break them or to make them. And I had an incident where I was so late to a sales meeting for a very big tech company, and I missed the meeting altogether. I had never done that in, at that point, 12 years of being in sales. And not only was I really embarrassed, but it started to affect my livelihood and my reputation. And I decided to commit to this 32 days of change. And in that, I sent out an email to 60 something people in my network. And I said, here's the thing, y'all. I am having a really hard time showing up for myself. I split a skirt going out of my apartment because I've gained so much weight, which is a whole thing actually connected to my sleep, to be honest. The second thing is I'm showing up late to meetings. And the third thing is I want to become a morning goddess like all of you. So can you please help me do this? And you can help me do this by inviting me to your morning workouts. What happened in the first few days is that I could not actually stay out with clients or anyone else for that matter past a certain time because I was getting up and being in a workout class by 6:30 with a girlfriend who I'm really good at showing up for other people, right? So I knew I wasn't going to let them down. So it was kind of reverse psychology. By the third week, I had lost 10 pounds. By the fifth week, I had just found my love for water, boxing, and running. And 3 months later, I'd lost 25 pounds. About a year later, I was down 70 pounds and I actually did my first Olympic triathlon. I'm sharing this with all of you because it wasn't overnight change to how I value my time, but thank goodness it happened before I actually started a company, because my time hygiene and routine is actually fairly strict to be able to flex in my schedule on a daily basis with all those things that come in, so it doesn't feel like chaos and I can delegate appropriately. I spend a lot of time in the morning reading. I have the luxury of reading because I do not have children yet. I have the luxury of my own time with my man because I don't have children yet, but I do have my baby, which is Poppy Seed Health. So that morning, you cannot break me from reading in the morning. That's very important. I'm really into water, anything hydrotherapy. So I actually take 2 showers a day, in the morning to wake me up and in the evening to put me down, which means I do have really good skincare habits because all this melanin I need to keep really, moist and glowing. So have the right products. And during the day, besides things like this where I know I need to, show up and do something that's really scheduled on my calendar, I actually do leave blocks of time on my calendar on a daily basis to deal with those, like, fires that come up that always do early stage in any company, so that I can address those appropriately when I need to. But yeah, that's how I spend, the majority of my time on a day-to-day basis. There's one other thing that I will share very vulnerably with everyone, especially for anyone that's going through an IVF journey. And as you consider what that looks like, the one thing people do not tell you is how much time it actually takes. Where you're going through IVF, either an egg retrieval to make embryos or egg retrieval to then do an implantation, whatever that journey looks like for you, there are shots. And there are shots that you have to take almost every day at the same time for an amount of time. There's going into your doctor's office to do blood work almost on a daily basis. These are not easy things. It's not like they're, right next door to you. I have to travel there and travel back. And when you're going through a cycle, we're talking about sometimes 3 weeks at a time. So just know that my own personal schedule has now been taken up by making sure I'm fitting all of this in. Because if it's the one thing that I know that I'm really committed to, is doing everything I can possibly do that's in front of me to be able to become a mother one day too.
Yes, what an incredible story, Simone. Thank you for sharing. I mean, literally, you gave a master class in all of the steps and the experiences that you've had going from chaos to calm. And I love that you put that accountability out there. 60 people. So you didn't just tell one person, you made sure that if one dropped the ball, 59 others were going to be like, Simone, what you doing? Simone, what you doing? Simone, what are you doing?
That's exactly right.
So seriously, I am just so grateful for each one of you sharing your practices. And I know that everyone listening has been taking notes the same way that I am. It's literally like a solution in a box. If you are a career professional, a mother in sales, a stay-at-home mom, wherever you are, I know that these rituals and these practices, they serve to recharge you, to reinvigorate you, and to make you become the best version of yourself. So if podcasting is your thing, podcasting is your thing. Reading books, getting fit, getting more sleep, buying a mattress, taking care of the skin, because y'all, the skin is a thing. Skin is a thing. I want to thank each one of you for sharing your wisdom and your expertise. Before we close, I want to just give you one final question here. Can I ask you, if you were mentoring a new mom, if you had a new mom on your team, if you had a new mom in your sphere of influence, what's one tip or one bit of advice that you would give or share with them? And I know, especially in the workplace, like we're having this conversation here now, and it's very open, it's very public, it's very transparent. And this is not the norm. In the workplace, for sure, these conversations are not typically had. And so if you think about women that are in your sphere of influence as well, what advice would you give to them along this journey? Let's start with you, Yaslin.
Yeah, the one bit of advice that I'd give is do not sacrifice your family for short-term gain. That is the one of the biggest things that I've personally learned. And so when you're trying to make decisions about, do I have this deadline? My son is sick. My daughter is sick. I have to do this for the family member, or versus, some work commitment. It is okay to say to your job, I'm not going to be able to make that deadline, but here's what I can do. Or I need to change that date. Or we need to flex it a little bit. Or can I ask my coworker to help me with this? Right? Those things are better than missing the deadline, not doing it, or worst case scenario, sacrificing something on your family side. So, as tempting as it is sometimes to make that, oh, just this once, or oh, just hold on a second, all those kinds of things, it's always better to not sacrifice, your family for short-term gains.
Fantastic. Do not sacrifice family for short-term gains. Denise, 30 seconds.
Oh yes. I would. My biggest recommendation is get into some sort of a schedule. Right. Have some sort of a schedule, because I think that is very important. And within the schedule that you have, build in time where you're not doing something, just so if anything comes up. I think a schedule is so important in terms of balancing work and motherhood, because without it, um, it's a tough thing. You're always reacting. It's a lot easier to be proactive and understand, and when you're planning. So I would say that that's the most important thing.
Fantastic. Simone?
So my advice for new moms is to focus on yourself. Sounds really counterintuitive, but you need to heal. If you've physically just given birth, no matter how that birth happens, do not be afraid to focus on your own healing and to ask for what you want. You may not know what you need, and that's okay. You'll figure it out by hopefully having the kind of support system that you can depend on. But your healing is really, really important. And that is something that I think new moms forget, or just no one tells you, because you instinctually feel like you need to show up for this little cannonball that just entered your life all of the time. But as you were talking about sleep and taking care of yourself, you also need to do that right after you have a baby and while you heal. And if you do have a parental leave, take advantage of that. And I'm serious. Do not answer anybody. Do not feel like you need to show up for anyone but yourself and your baby and your family and the ones that are there close, and hold them close. Don't be afraid to ask for what you need.
Thank you, ladies. This has been a phenomenal panel. I want to thank each one of you. Takeaways, listen, don't sacrifice your family. Get yourself into a schedule and focus on your healing. There is so much wisdom and knowledge from what you shared today. I am just so excited and so grateful that you have taken the time out to give all of us the information, to share your stories, to be vulnerable with us, and to provide so much encouragement and empowerment. Ladies, thank you. And once again, thank you for attending the Sistas in Sales conference.